Welcome to the video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at this thing here. This is the Quantum Ground Station. It's a brick that has a LiPo inside, and then on the outside a number of connectors and some clever electronics to allow you to connect a couple of external receivers for things like diversity. It has a couple of other tricks up its sleeve as well. So what I've done is I managed to get my hands on all of the equipment that we need. So I've got a LiPo battery, I've got this, I've got a couple of receivers, we've got a little screen to go on the top of it, and we've also got the tripod for it as well. What I was going to do was have a look at each of the individual bits in this, and I'll put a link in the description below so that you can find all of the stuff that we're looking at. And then once it's together, we'll actually go and use it and we'll see what it's all about. Now, we've used a couple of ground stations on the channel already. In the very early days, I built one out of a transmitter case. That was great. It worked really well, but it was quite bulky and it wasn't very easy to set up. It didn't really have diversity in it. It was quite basic. It was using a little 12-volt screen that was supposed to be used for reversing in a car. And then the next one that we've used are things like the Black Pearl diversity screen, which is kind of an all-in-one unit that sits on top as well. So we've had a couple of plays with things like this and making our own shades for them, for the screen and everything else. I really like ground stations for a couple of reasons. One, there are times when you are flying as part of a demonstration and you want to be able to maybe fly line of sight, but actually be able to show as part of a demo that you're doing for FPV what the camera can see. Obviously with goggles that makes it very tricky for multiple people. Second thing is, if you are not lucky enough to have some goggles like we have here, we have the Fat Shark Dominator V3s that we use a lot, that has a little fan on the top. In winter you tend to find the cold weather will make the moisture from your eyes condense out and basically fog the goggles up. So a ground station is much more fun in winter months for that as well. So what we'll do then is let's quickly go through all the pieces we have here, and then we'll start taking everything out of the box and then putting it all together. So we'll start with the basic thing first. We have a great whacking battery. This is a battery that fits really nicely into the ground station. It's a 5.2 or 5200 milliamp hour 4S battery. That should run pretty much everything for quite a while. We have two of these AutoScan receivers. I really like these. These are quite cute. We've looked at loads of receivers on the channel in the past. It has the right SMA connector on the top for all of my Fat Shark antennas and the other ones as well, so that's perfect. It is only a 32 channel receiver, so it isn't going to receive race band, but we've got a couple of these, so we can actually put something like a circular polarized antenna on one of them, and on the other one we can do something like something that gives us a bit more range, something like a patch or a directional antenna, and that way we can get the best of both worlds. For antenna details and how the different antennas work, you can watch this video. I'll put a link to it here that talks about the different antenna types for FPV, but the fact we can connect two of these together means that we can get the best of both worlds, and that's called diversity, and it's all covered in that video. We won't talk about it here. With this thing, and we have two of them so we can do the diversity, we get a shed load of connectors, including the obligatory horrible whip aerial, but we'll be using something else with it when we set it up. So there's two of those. We have the ground station itself. We'll do this one next because the last two pieces are huge. The ground station is pretty big itself. So a couple of key features on this. It has a screw on the top that allows you to connect your monitor. It has a screw at the bottom that allows you to put it on a tripod, so that's really nicely thought out. It's all ready to rock and roll. You have the RSSI in and the video ins from these little receivers that we've just had a look at. You have the video outs, so as well as having video outs to a screen on the top, you can also, if you wanted to, and you had something like the Quantum goggles that don't have a receiver on them, then what you can do is you can plug those into here and people can have their own kind of cinema style experience. On the end you have where the battery goes in, so that's where that big 5200 milliamp hour 4S pack will go in. It connects with the main power, and it also has kind of a monitoring balance tap as well that allows it at the end to kind of give you all the LiPo alarm stuff, so if it's getting a bit low it'll let you know and you can kind of check how well the battery is, which is a nice touch because we're going to have one battery running everything. So if that battery fails, we're in real trouble. We have an on-off switch, and then we have a number of 12-volt outputs. Now, most of the goggles that we use here would run with 12 volts. So it now means that rather than having to have a little 3S battery attached to the side, we could also just jumper off this. So for goggles, we'd power it from this side and we'd get our video out from the other side. Other couple of cute things, we have a 5-volt out and also a USB out. This, I think, is a really smart idea. I know a lot of people have just thought, oh, you can charge your phone or something else. Actually, you know what this is really great for? And I'll show you this now. There is a support in here that you can build, and we're going to build this up. And it comes out the side, and it actually allows you to mount a tablet or a smartphone or an Android tab or whatever it is on the front of the device. Now, for those of us that fly things like Pixhawk, Pixracers or APMs, where you want things like Mission Planner to be running, it now means that you can actually have a tablet sat mounted on the ground station, and then that can display live telemetry information, positional information, everything else all in one. That is a really, really cute feature, and I don't think a lot of people have really talked about that yet, but I think it's only those pilots who like to have that kind of ground station telemetry readout on some kind of computer are going to really get a kick out of that. Luckily, I'm one of them. And then we get loads and loads of cables to connect everything up, and we'll go through the connection in a minute. But you can see we've got loads of kind of the 12 volts for the goggles. We've got other 12 volts with the other ends for power supply. We've got loads of stuff. So the last couple of things then that we've got that we're going to need to actually build this stuff, and don't worry, we're nearly at the end. We've got a tripod, which I'm not going to be able to get really in the camera, but there you go. We have a tripod, and we're going to put it on the top of that. That's a tripod again. We'll put the link in the description. This one actually came from HobbyKing. We managed to get the whole thing shipped in one. And the last thing we need, of course, is a little screen. So this is the screen that we're going to use. My desk is getting really full now. It comes with a little sunshade, which is great because we've made sunshades out of black board before. We don't have to worry about that. And this screen is designed for FPV, and it has all the controls on it. It has Velcro that goes around the outside that we can stick that sunscreen onto, and on the back we have kind of a sliding connector, and the connectors then for power and also the video in and whatnot as well. And on the bottom we have our little connector to screw it into the base. So now we've gone through everything, we've got a rough idea of all the pieces that you need to make this ground station. Let me clear the desk and let's start putting this thing together. So to put the thing together is pretty straightforward from here. So we get these little brackets in the kit with the ground station. They're designed to fit these receivers here, so they just fit straight in. It's not a tight fit, so if there are ones that are similar size, you can pop them in. It means that you can get to all the connectors at the bottom. I'm aware that Quantum are actually going to be doing dual diversity ones of this. So rather than to be able to have two inputs, you can actually have quad diversity. So that could be something to think about for the future. So the way this works is you just pop each of these on the side. They just slide into these little brackets, and then you can just pop these in. So the mounting of those is pretty straightforward. The other end is where the battery goes in, as we've seen, so we'll pop that in a sec. Last thing I'll show you before we kind of move on to other pieces. Here, this is the actual holder for the tablet itself. Now, there's great instructions here on how you actually build this thing in the manual. So it goes through each of the pieces. It's pretty straightforward to put together. It has lots of rubber bits that go around the actual holder for whatever tablet it is that you're using. It isn't big enough to extend to the full size of something like one of the largest iPads, but an iPad mini would be fine, or something like this, which is a kind of a 7-inch Android tablet, is perfect. Now the way this works is that it actually connects onto the top here, and then it actually screws in with a couple of screws that I've got that go into the top, and then here we actually have the plug-in for the monitor. So that's a really nice addition. I think this is one of the really strong parts about this, that they've thought about it, because now it means that you can have, if you have like an audio input from something like an Easy OSD from Immersion RC, or you're using an APM or Pixhawk and you want to put a little tablet computer at the front to run Mission Planner or one of the Android versions of it, then you can have all that stuff displayed as part of your ground station. So now we've done this bit and we're almost ready. Let me finish putting all the cables together. We'll come back and have a look at how that is, and then we'll take it outside and we'll give it a go, and I'll let you know what I think. So to wire things up isn't too tricky either. So of course we have our inputs on the front with our video out, and on the back we have our power connectors. So the way you do this, on the bottom of each of these receivers, and you get all the cables that you need in the kit with the ground station, and you also get extra ones with the receivers as well if you're just buying these to add something like quantum goggles or some other kind of goggles or screen that doesn't have a receiver. On the bottom you have RSSI, video out 1 and 2, and DC in 12 volts. So what you need to find for each of these is the green cable that's going to be for your RSSI. We're going to plug that into the RSSI port. Then we need one of these cables. There seems to be thousands of these around with all the kit that we've got here. This is the one we're going to use. We're going to plug that into either or, video 1 or video 2. We'll just plug it into video 1. And then the last thing is, there are lots of these power cables. Now, the power cables in here, let me see if it's going to focus, there we go, have different sizes. This is the thicker one, and we have thinners, and we also have others in the kit, if I just grab one here, that also have the same size ends. Now these are great for things like the screen, but there's a couple of these in the kit, so these are the perfect size. So you plug that into the DC in 12 volts, and then we'll make this our default receiver. So on the front where it says RSSI default, we'll plug that one in there, then we'll plug the default video in, and then on the other side we'll plug into one of the 12 volt outputs. We'll use one of the ones at this end because it will be easier. Okay, that's that one done. We do the same thing for the other receiver, and then we can pop them in the cradles. To wire up the screen is pretty straightforward. Obviously we're going to screw the screen onto this little thing here, and we'll also, for kind of just demo testing purposes, we'll pop on this top piece and sort that out as well. And the screen itself, now this version of the screen, a little bit interesting in that it has 3 wires, which a lot of these screens have. One of them, they're either 2 video, 1 audio, 1 video, or whatever. So we'll play with that and we'll test out which is which. The power cable on this is the bigger one. So that bigger cable that we looked at before, where we have 2 fat ends, that's the one we're going to need to plug into there, and then plug it into the power at the back. And then most kit will have a different type of connector, the RCA connector with a pin in the middle, which is what we need to connect into here. Unfortunately, this particular screen that we've got has the same kind of connector, so what we're going to need is something like this, a little RCA adapter. So you can use any screen you want with this, of course. This is the one that we happen to be using. If you're using exactly the same as we've got here, then just make sure that you've got one of these around, because we can just plug that into the in fact, video is probably going to be yellow actually, but we'll test it, into one of the video outs, and then that is wired up as well. So let me put this together as it should be, pop it on the top of a tripod. Let's go outside and see how it works. So the first thing we need to do, of course, is install the battery. So we just need to slide it into this very big hole, which is the majority of the space in this thing, and then we'll apply the main power. The main power is done by the switch, and once we install this balance tap, you'll see that the kind of LiPo monitor will burst into life. So this is something that when you're not using it, you need to unplug that balance tap. All of the cables kind of push up out the way, and then the door snaps over the top. So then it's ready to rock and roll. Again, be careful, don't leave the balance tap plugged in, because that will drain the battery over time. And then all we need to do is swing this thing round and then hit the power button for everything to burst into life and for those 12 volts out at the back to be powered up. The actual thing itself really looks the part. So this is the tripod, the two receivers, has my little Android tablet at the front, the screen with the hood all attached, and it looks like a really grown-up ground station. A couple of things that we'll kind of zoom in on that I just want to draw your attention to before we kind of show this thing in action and power it up. When you're putting this thing together, these 4 screws here that hold the thing in aren't recessed or countersunk in the same way. So the way I'd recommend that you put this together is put the top plate on first, and that will allow you to screw the screen on, and then put the 4 bolts in to hold the holder at the front for whatever tablet is you're using. Do it that way round, otherwise with these 4 bolts in you can't put the screen on. Powered up, this is what the receivers look like on the side. Really nice displays on these, rather than the little like 7-segment display things that we normally have. So to change the frequency just like we have, and you can also see at the top we have the RSSI values. So at the moment the rear antenna is getting a much better signal, and that's the one we're seeing. In operation, the unit is really nice. The screen is really bright, very nice to see. You can see here that we've actually plugged the yellow cable in for the screen that we've got here into our video out, and again we could also have other goggles and things plugged into this too. Also worthwhile potentially popping a DVR onto one of those video outs to record your flight. It would have been lovely if they'd actually included a DVR as part of this. The only other comment that I'll make is having these 2 receivers on the side is probably not the best idea. I would have liked to have my circular polarized antenna nice and high. So the cables that come in the kit, it would be nice to have a couple of longer versions, but they're standard cables, so they're things that you can make up or get from your local electronics shop. So in summary, this thing works really well. It's really clear. Here we're kind of filming it on an overcast day in winter, and it's working absolutely fine. And the ability to pop our little Android tablet or our iPhone or whatever it is into the front so that we can also get our telemetry information displayed underneath is such a nice touch. And for those of us that do fly with things like the Immersion RC Easy OSD or some of the on-screen displays that have Android or iPhone apps, it's a boon. And don't forget, we have that USB cable at the back that we can plug everything into to keep your tablet, phone or PC topped up with power while you're using it too. I would say if you're interested in a ground station, this is definitely one to look at. Don't forget, it looks like we're going to have access to diversity individual receivers, which would mean we could put up to 4 antennas on this, and with a bit of imagination and a bit of budge you could have a beautiful 180-degree long distance array out the back of this ground station with a bit of cabling. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video. There are lots of other videos on the channel, and they're carefully ordered into playlists, so you may find that there are other videos on this same subject that you can go and watch. So I would recommend going into the playlist area of Painless 360 YouTube channel and looking around and seeing what there is. You never know what you might find. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and happy flying.